Morning Talk with Siki Mgabadeli.
And it's 6 minutes past 9. This is SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader. Now, Archbishop Thabo Makgoba this week hosted a national dialogue at the historical Lilies Leaf Farm in Rivonia. The meeting was the culmination of a series of regional dialogues which were held across South Africa over the past months. And the dialogue was attended by civil society, actors from different sectors such as the youth, rural development agencies, gender, academia, government, opposition parties and faith communities to reflect really on the theme, finding ways to walk together. And also present were prominent leaders such as President Masiria from Botswana to help put the South African dialogue in a larger African perspective. The focus of the meeting was really to capture the aspirations of ordinary South Africans about dialogue as a way to help our country overcome its numerous challenges. So we're going to be talking about the initiative, but also hearing from you, your thoughts on dialogue. I know we talk about our South Africans just loving debate. Is that all we do? We talk and no action. But surely we have to start somewhere in identifying what our problems are and then talk them through. So let's talk this morning on 0891104207, SMSs to 34701. After 10, we're going to talk Black consciousness, and this month marks 22 years since the mysterious passing of Muntu Mieza, who was a committed member and leader of the Black consciousness movement. So we're going to commemorate his life and legacy and then ask about the role that he played in the fight against apartheid, and also looking at how Black consciousness can be revived today. At 10:30, the focus is on the state of human rights in South Africa, speaking to the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Then after 11, we're focusing on the 50th anniversary of Madiba's capture and the unveiling of a new iconic sculpture that is going to mark that. So that's the program. Call us 0891104207. Send us an SMS to 34701. Those are charged at R2. Email us at morning@safm.co.za or go to our Facebook page, Morning Talk with Siki.
Magnolia Music Masters, in association with SAFM, presents Sibongile Khumalo's concert tour, Reflect, Celebrate, Live. Celebrating 20 years of excellence in a career of jazz, opera and traditional music styles. Reflect, Celebrate, Live showcases highlights from Khumalo's musical journey, and she is joined by a jazz piano trio, string quartet, choir of 12 and 2 narrators. Come join us and bear witness as she dazzles the audience with an artistic mixture of poetry, storytelling, sketches and musical pieces on stage at the Vets Great Hall on the 28th of July. For more information, go to subongilekhumalo.co.za.
Athletes from 204 nations will take part.
Live our Olympic spirit.
Morning Talk with Siki Mgabadeli.
It's 9 minutes past 9 here on SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader. So talking national dialogue this morning, I'll hear from you on 0891104207, SMSs 34701. Fanny Du Toit is Executive Director at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Siki. It's a pleasure to be here.
So these have been held regionally and then culminated in the workshop, or I'd call it a workshop, but I suppose the get-together at Lilies Leaf Farm.
Yeah, that's quite correct. We had regional workshops, dialogues, in fact, sessions across the country in various provinces, which culminated in this dialogue session over 2 days in Lilies Leaf, which is in itself a historical place, of course, and a place that inspired us to look for ways to get talking again.
And what were South Africans saying that were? In fact, first, let's start with who was represented. I mentioned civil society, the young people, political parties, faith communities, and so on.
Yeah, I mean, there was a really widespread. We had, I think, initially in the run-up, something like 115 key stakeholders identified, and well over 50% of those responded and attended. So it was an astounding mix of people in the room. And the conversation was very frank, very productive, and underscored a few things. And one of the astounding things, and of course the meeting was really designed to report back from the regional meetings across the country. And one of the major points that came out right the way through is as much as people are tired of aimless talking, as much as they've become cynical of mass meetings and long speeches and that sort of thing, South Africans across the board, from right across the spectrum, have an urgent desire for dialogue that is proper, meaningful, and sustained, and come out with practical solutions.
What do they mean by meaningful dialogue? Because I hear you. There is a sense that people have dialogue fatigue, I think I'd call it.
Yes.
That this is what we're told we must debate issues, we must talk about them.
Yes.
To what end?
Yes, exactly. And, often so much of our debates in this country is conducted from very entrenched positions where there's really a zero-sum game between mine and yours.
Yeah.
And you can never say what I say, and I can never say what you say. Dialogue really is designed to find a middle way, to get people to understand the other side and to make concessions in the process, and to find a constructive compromise. And this is as South African as it can get, because this is our own tradition. But it seems to us that South Africans are saying that our dialogue, the quality of our dialogue, have suffered in recent times, and it's time to reclaim this tradition. And they don't seem to see dialogue as a waste of time, as something that you postpone action with, but it's actually a means to get things done more effectively, faster, quicker. It's a means to more effective problem solving.
Yeah, because then you at least point to the problems. If everybody highlights what the issues are, you can get everybody around a table to do it. Then you can more effectively find solutions. Exactly,
and there's a growing, I think, a realization, or there's a feeling that people are beginning to understand that government is not the only show in town. That there is in fact a need, as the National Planning Commission said, and as many others leaders have made the point recently, for active citizens to take and do their part and really collaborate with government. And this theme of finding ways to walk together really is about that. It's about saying this is not in the first place, an agonistic or a hostile setting up of civil society vis-a-vis other role players, but it really is about taking hands and saying, how can we collaborate more effectively for a series of very pressing problems that we are facing right now?
How do we get around that initial point that you made, and the initial, I think, the biggest problem that we sit with, and that is that we are in camps. We do have entrenched positions, and it's very, very difficult for someone to actually take pause and use the 2 ears to listen and the one mouth to shut up and speak only once they've understood.
Yes, I mean there is absolutely no golden rule for that, and it is something that rears its ugly head everywhere South Africans get to talk to one another. But one of the sobering things is that we have come to some sort of national consensus that our society is not sustainable in its current form. We've seen how societies have gone through huge bouts of violence recently across the Arab world. We've seen how this has spread, even to capital cities such as London and so on. So there's a sense in the world that business as usual is no longer good enough, and this is new. This is the last year or so. This realization has also dawned in South Africa. So I think it's always a sense of urgency, a sense of realizing that our policies are not working. That the poor is not just disempowered individuals, but they're politically active, and they have decisions they want to make if they get the opportunity, and will make them. And we and that government govern only by consent of the citizens of South Africa, and if the citizens of South Africa no longer respect that government, then there's a problem. So there's all that sense of urgency, I think, that's accumulating, and that would motivate, I would think, and it seems that we are seeing this motivate the move beyond entrenched positions, that people are again willing to explore things because we're seeing that we're not as stable as we thought we were.
How do we then move towards constructive dialogue, constructive engagement?
Well, I think that, that there's a lot that we can learn from our own history in this regard. And South Africa has got a long and interesting history of constructive dialogue that was not grandstanding, it was precisely moving away from entrenched positions to more creative solutions. And this was during our political transition, but also before that. And then subsequent, the National Peace Accord that was brokered by business, trade unions, and the church coming together and saying, we're not going to leave this to politicians. We, as these three constituencies, are going to make sure that we hold the politicians to account and that we accompany them on this road to the new South Africa. And they did so. And this was an amazing achievement, the National Peace Accord that we had in South Africa. So, how do we move beyond it? Well, we get together and we talk seriously, and I don't think we get together in necessarily large numbers.
In large groups, yeah.
But we do get together in there was recently a meeting between top farmers and the ANC Secretariat talking about land distribution. This is the sort of meeting, I think, that we have to have a lot more of, where constructive two camps can sit down, have a concrete problem, and talk it out.
What can we learn from other countries who have successfully institutionalized dialogue?
Well, I think this is another finding that we've seen from this process where we've been involved. There is a clear need for a national strategy on dialogue. South Africa doesn't have one at the moment. In fact, we are obliged under the African Union Treaty to have a national institution for conflict mediation. And it's a trend now across Africa. We see countries actually institutionalizing dialogue in the form of one or other major national institution, a permanent institution. Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, Sudan all have either commissions of national integration or national healing or reconciliation. And I think, South Africa needs to think very carefully. We dismantled the National Peace Accord at the time, thought that this was now the job of our government. But clearly one needs, in the tradition of our Chapter 9 institutions perhaps, some sort of institution that can drive this, but then facilitate organic dialogue so that lots of this can happen at the grassroots as well.
But wouldn't you say that something like the South African Human Rights Commission plays that pseudo role at the moment?
I think the Human Rights Commission has a hugely important role in South Africa. I think it's probably one of the critical institutions. Question is how are they able to cope with the sheer magnitude of watching out for human rights, because human rights abuse, that's their primary focus, not conflict mediation. So I would argue that the Human Rights Commission, although they do a fair bit of this, that's not their primary function or their primary mandate. Their primary mandate is to make sure that South Africans' human rights are honored and respected. And that's a slightly different focus to trying to find creative ways to solve problems together.
So if we had to put an institution together that deals with all of this, what do you think the key ingredients in that particular institution would need to be?
Well, I think it would have to be, first of all, credible. So, from whichever racial, ethnic, political, or economic class or background you come from, people would have to feel they can approach this body. So it will have to be credible. That means a non-political, bipartisan leadership. It would have to also be accessible to people, and it would have to be empowered. It would have to have a proper budget that it can work from, and so it's going to cost some money. But if you look at the kind of government reports that we've seen recently, and the Summit on Social Cohesion, for example, the National Planning Commission's report on that one of the 9 points mentioned there emphasizes the need for social cohesion, the invitation of the president on numerous occasions for an active citizenry to engage government and so on. Then this is in line with what we are all thinking. And it should really be something that shouldn't be too difficult to conceptualize.
It was interesting when I was at the Social Cohesion Summit, the sense I got when I walked out of there was that there's a definite need for a platform for people to, I'm going to use the word vent, and I mean it in both the positive and the negative, to vent. but that they don't have the platforms to do so. So people were bringing in things that even had nothing to do with social cohesion, but because they now have a microphone and they have leaders in front of them, they're able to actually say what they've always wanted to say.
See, part of the magic of dialogue, and if I may put it that way, and I mean it slightly tongue-in-cheek, but part of the real power of dialogue is the fact that it gets people in the room that wouldn't normally be in the room together. And it creates a space where people from both sides are heard in a way that they wouldn't normally be heard. So that has two effects. Number one, you solve problems more effectively. Number two, people feel they belong. So in a sense, it becomes an essential prerequisite, a step towards social cohesion, dialogue. It's a way for people to say, I've said my say, I've been heard, therefore I must belong to this body politic.
We're going to pick up on that and take some calls as well from South Africans. Let's get the dialogue going on 0891 104 207, SMSs to 34701.
Morning Talk with Stiki Mgabadeli.
In conversation with Dr. Fani du Toit, who's Executive Director at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. Let's take some calls. Let's hear from Maura in Cape Town. Hi, Maura. Maura.
Hello.
Morning.
Good morning. I think that maybe that my name is badly pronunciation is Mauro.
Mauro.
Maybe.
Oh, right. Hi, Mauro.
Yes, well, I need some attention because I've been waiting for quite a while.
Well, you've got the attention.
No, I mean, what the gentleman said, it's the best which has been told in the last year. Because the concept is very clear and touches the problem. I've been trying, probably you remember me, many times to contact and to inform about my research for the squatter camp solution. And also the media, which is supposed to be impartial. I found that, as the gentleman said, is entrenched. Lots of these institutions which are supposed to help are entrenched, and that is the problem. Anyhow, my important information about the point where they start this dialogue, which is very important. In Cape Town, at the Italian Club, the 1st of August, at 7:30, there will be a meeting touching this problem or how to solve this disgraceful process of the informal settlement.
Okay.
What is going to happen in this meeting? Private people who have been working on this concept, of which I am the designer. I am an architect with a social preoccupation, not only money. This company, which have been helping me in the process, they will formulate the conditions which they can participate, because the authority are talking very often of this private participation. But there is no way in which they indicate how this can be done.
Okay.
These people working in a municipality, other institution, they get fat salaries. So I don't know how they may expect that people putting an expensive research into this problem, they can do things for nothing.
Okay.
So during this meeting, we try to meet the starting point and telling to the authority, hoping that they will come, because very often they don't even come. They ignore this private initiative. And any person who is interested in this participation are welcome. The 1st of August, Wednesday, at 7:30, in the restaurant of the Italian Club.
Okay.
And why we do in the restaurant? Because you need to motivate people to give something. And obviously, being the Italian Club, what you think that we can give at the Italian club?
Food.
We'll give pasta.
Okay, you'll give lots of pasta. Is there a number, Mauro, please listen to me.
Review at the club, but maybe this will happen in the future.
All right,
So
Mauro.
any person interested in having
Mauro,
more
listen to
information, I
me,
give my telephone number.
Mauro, please listen to me. What I'd like to ask is there a number that people can call if they'd like to participate? Mauro?
Yes.
Is there a number that people
Yes,
can call?
021
Yeah.
439
439
3215.
3215.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. James in Joburg. Morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, James.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to say, look, I was listening to your comments earlier on regarding. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Regarding how you might have thought that there is a bit of, fatigue in terms of dialogue. The stigma is that people are tired of talk.
Yeah.
But I seriously, disagree with both of you. I'd like to just highlight why. I believe that South Africa is based, the basis of who we are in Southern Africa, the reason why we're so advanced as an economy, as a people, is because of dialogue. Dialogue breaks down the barriers of culture, dialogue breaks down stigma, and I think that is one of the reasons why South Africa is so advanced, because it's outspoken. The fact that I can actually call you and air my view, is not simply just communicating and talking. Other people are learning from it.
Yeah.
And also what it does is it stops me from bottling things in as a South African individual. And one of the things that I've picked up is that in some countries, that particular culture has actually, stopped development. Look at Zimbabwe, for instance. I'm Zimbabwean.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why Zimbabwe is not progressing is because there's a cultural, what I suppose people can't express themselves because of cultural issues. And that has been broken down in South Africa. Okay. Now, one of the things that I think needs to be done is question who dialogues. This is the trick.
Yeah.
Who is dialoguing? Who are you approaching? Look at what President Zuma did quite recently. He went around the country and he dialogued with people. He said, I want to talk to you. I just want to talk to everybody. It doesn't matter who you are or, what level of the structure in society you are. I want to talk to everyone. That was brilliant. And I think we need to see more of that.
But we do agree with you. I think, you might have misunderstood. We didn't say that there is fatigue. I was putting the question that I know is going to come, that people say, in fact, here's an SMS here that says, what is it? We are tired of talk shops. The other day we were told that President Zuma, unlike many before him, is a doer, a practical man. How we were so fooled. Sorry, we are just tired of talk shops. So I'm merely reflecting that there are people who are going to feel that way.
So there are essentially two arms. There's the dialogue arm, and then there's the actioning arm. Yeah. And whichever, I think dialogue is good in South Africa. I think it's definitely progressing and it's progressive. But I think maybe the doing arm is the arm that needs to be challenged. And I also just while I have the opportunity, I want to thank these guys for creating that dialogue, and I actually want to thank them for introducing the opportunities for international. Politicians to actually come by, because that puts weight to the dialogue that happened quite recently. All
right. Thanks, James. That's James in Johannesburg. Peter, stay on the line, and let's hear from Peter in Grahamstown. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Siki.
Hi.
Dialogue, talk. At the risk of people getting tired of my voice, I'm pretty sure that they don't get tired of your voice. You speak so beautifully. But let me suggest, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Let me suggest that we go a little bit further than just talking and do what I did last week. Put your money where your mouth is. And South Africans have this tendency, I suppose it's a natural tendency, to put people into boxes. Now, on this particular radio station, the farmers are mostly put into a negative box. Now, I gave my phone number out, and I haven't had not one negative phone call yet. And I would suggest that some of your other regular callers do that. Instead of them just shouting from the fence and people not knowing exactly what they stand for, give their phone numbers out and see what sort of reaction they get. Be courageous enough to do that, because we've got a hell of a lot more in common than what you assume. And the boxes in South Africa consist of minority groups, tribal groups, political groups. There's poverty and envy, and this underlying disappointment with the ANC not delivering. So it's leading to the surfacing of these deep-seated, hardened attitudes and views which are entrenched. And I think if we had more meaningful discussion and more contribution from people who actually always, as I say, shouting from the fence and not actually doing something, and we don't really know what they stand for, and then the majority being at the receiving end, I think we could get a lot further. You're going to hear a lot more about what I said on radio last week. There's going to be benefit, I'm sure, in the Transkei area. There's a person wanting those Transkei people to grow genetically free, not GM maize, and he's prepared to make a special type of meal from it. He's got a mill going as a Natal person. I'll communicate with you about that, because the Transkei area needs that sort of development, and it's because of my phone call that he's contacted me, and we can open up avenues for those farmers in Transkei to make some money.
All right. No, we'll definitely explore that with you. Thanks, Peter. That's Peter in Grahamstown. We'll take more. Let me read some SMSs, and then I think we've got quite a bit to deal with here. Let's hear if there's an SMS from Kabazela, who says, Siki, talk. We've had it. We are hungry. Feed us first, and we will dialogue all you want. Someone says, we can talk, but see, the problem with that space is infested with politicians who are hungry for targets. David Mtunzi in Mahikeng says, love for one another is born out of dialogue. Charles and Ladysmith says, improve literacy, dialogue and debating at school to social cohesiveness. And Sajin Indenze says, actions, no more talks, please. We need solutions now. Fani?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just listening to this. I think, again, back to one of the findings of this series of workshops, dialogues, in fact, has been that the majority of South Africans don't think dialogue is a waste of time. Dialogue is also an action. Dialogue is something you do. It's not about speeches. It's not about aimless talking. It's about finding solutions. And I think Peter's call illustrates the power of dialogue in that sense. It's not about speeches, and even some callers calling in, tend to make speeches and think that they're doing dialogue. It's not that, it really is about creating a space to engage and exchange views. But, one of the things that I found most striking of this series of meetings has been that, foreign nationals, people outside South Africa looking in, participated. And that's always a very healthy thing. And we had, for example, the United Nations Development Plan, the UNDP officials come and tell us, listen, if you want development, if you want effective development across the world now, people recognize that dialogue, conflict mediation precedes that. You cannot have effective food distribution, agricultural plans, land redistribution and so on, without proper dialogue, which is not shouting matches, which is constructive talking about a shared dilemma.
I find the point about politicians dominating the space quite interesting, because on the one hand, I think we have left a lot of our own development to politicians. We expect them to solve all of our problems, which is impossible. But at the same time, I don't think you can leave them out, because in many cases, you need them to act. So if you need a piece of land, it's going to have to come from, some politician somewhere who is in government.
Yeah, the point was made that, cultures in South Africa across the board, from Afrikaner culture to Xhosa culture, etc., all of us are fairly patriarchal in nature. Yeah. We're authoritarian, so we defer to authority. We tend to do that naturally. And this is something, I'm actually, we are seeing that, South Africans are becoming less like that and more democratic. South Africans are becoming democrats, and this is not true only of the cities. This is true of rural areas where people are extremely fed up with the lack of progress there, and therefore they're holding people to account. They're a lot less reverent. So I think that trend of expecting everything from government is beginning to change, and people are realizing if we don't going to get together as citizens and do things together, it's not going to happen.
James asked a very interesting point, or a question rather. Who dialogues? I think that's a very important question because we need to know which voices are louder than others, who's belonging, who is included and who is excluded.
Absolutely. I think there will be many dialogue processes that will die a natural death because they're not inclusive. Obviously people with means, people with access and so on are often the ones to start dialogue processes. But if those dialogue processes are not honestly expanded to include voices that are normally not participating, that are silent, those dialogue processes tend to peter out and die a natural death. So who dialogues? Well, the ideal opportunity, the ideal situation probably is for people who don't normally talk to one another to be in the same room. People who don't normally talk but yet share a problem with each other.
And lock the door.
Lock the door and don't come out before where they've reached,
some sort of
way forward. Yeah.
All right. Let's hear from Amrit in Cape Town. Hi, Amrit.
Hello, good morning, Vicky.
Hi.
Good morning to your guest. From which organization is your guest, Vicky?
The Institute for Justice and Reconciliation.
Reconciliation. Right. Now, I am a blind person, right? I'm completely blind, right? Now, I am concerned about the law-abiding people in this country, right? The people are getting fed up of the high crime in our country, right? The people want freedom and we want to live in peace and harmony, right? Now, there must be a transformation in our prison system, right? And there must be better services in our prison services, right? And there are prisoners who are dangerous prisoners who are incarcerated in prisons for many years, right? And it is time that the clergy people go to these prisons and spread the message of spiritual growth to these prisoners, right? And then we must see what is going to happen after a few years while these clergy people go and spread the message to the prisoners about spiritual growth, because it is time that they found a good solution to the high crime in this country. Thank you, Vicky.
All right, thanks, Amrit. Mashudu in Malvern. Ooh, hi.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, Mashudu.
Yes, and a warm good morning to your guest today.
Good morning.
Yes, I am very, very encouraged that there are people like you and then and the institutions such as that. Where I can start is that, as a South African, a lot of injustice has been done by the previous government and then the present government. If there are people who are destroying everything or who are sabotaging every effort, it's the present government and the previous government. So yes, dialogue, that's the best thing. People are not tired of talking. Those who say that, no, we are tired of talking, this and that, those are part of people who are sabotaging the development of the country.
All right.
Yeah. Yes, so, I am very happy, and then let us talk. Normally, let there be people, ordinary people. You must not be afraid of anything. Politicians, they represent very, very little. If you can look at our political party, if you can look at their card-carrying members, you can see that there are very, very few people. Where are all other people? So, it's time for South Africans to talk and then go forward and leave our politicians back a little while. Those ones, they are there for power, and then they are going to give us nothing. Thank you very much, and then good luck to the process.
All right, thanks, Mashudu. That's Mashudu in Malvern. Interesting, because as he says, political parties will represent their own constituency. What happens to those who are outside of politics?
Well, I think that political discussions, political decision making, cannot only happen on the agenda of political parties. Politics is far bigger than political parties, and we have conflated that. There was in the past a people's movement that encompassed all sorts of interest groups that ran wide and deep in society. Now, that people's movement, I don't think we have the equivalent of that today. Sometimes when you have certain meetings where, for example, churches and unions come together, you get the feeling of that time. But that's really what we need. We need spaces where people can talk politics, make decisions, hold politicians accountable, local government politicians, that are not designed and manipulated and structured by political party interests, but that are free spaces where people can actually engage. And that's not government's responsibility. That's our responsibility as citizens to create those spaces for ourselves. We are entitled. Government is our servants. They're there to serve our interests, not the other way around. And that is a very important message that I think is beginning to dawn on South Africans.
Anthony in the West Rand. Morning.
Good morning, Siki. I want to fully support what your guest is saying. I'm currently in dialogue with the Capital Institute in New York. This was founded by John Fullerton, who'd spent 18 years with J.P. Morgan. He got out of it because he realized there was something wrong. Now, I would like to commend your guest to Google the Capital Institute, because they are leading the whole movement, which they call Take Back.
Yeah.
Take back ownership. We have to take back our decision making. We have to take back our capacities to feed ourselves. We have to take back. And what they are especially interested in is the information I was able to give him on how a remote little community up in Limpopo have created the structure exactly that's what he's describing, where people come together to discuss solutions. And in the process, they won 3 World Bank awards and the Stockholm Challenge Award. It is possible. People have to take back their own decision-making. And get the politicians run after you. When you make the decision, you find that politicians run after you. You don't have to stop running after politicians. You can create your own future. So good luck.
I love that. Thanks, Anthony. Mutala, eThekwini morning.
Sawubona mntanami.
Sawubona mntanami. Ndiphilile
If we spoke in Zulu, I would be able to express my views far better. This is the problem with dialogue in South Africa. You see, at present, the prevailing entrenched position enhanced by the use of only one language, and the fact that those who are economically powerful, they speak English. The ordinary poor are left out completely in the dialogue. Under this environmental circumstances, dialogue can only be really meaningful when the majority poor become active participants. And this can only occur when the objective media communication is dominated at present by the language spoken by the people of South Africa and not by English. This, in fact, excludes the constructive participants of the majority poor who cannot express their views and opinion precisely as they want to.
Okay. Thanks, Mutala, and that's an important point about who dialogues. It goes back to James, but we'll explore that a little bit more in a moment. I'm going to take one final call, and then we're going to wrap up our conversation. Let's hear from Nicholas in East London. Hi, Nicholas.
Hi, Sylvia. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Yeah, this is a very good program, Sylvia. I think I've been enjoying it. I parked my car and I was listening to this conversation, but the only thing that I'd love to have the gentleman, your guest speaker there, can we have his contact numbers and details or whatever?
All right. Now I'll see what I can do for you. No?
Yeah, and the last thing that I would love to say is that the last speaker, your previous caller, and I think I would echo his words by saying people in the rural, especially those people that are poor, sometimes these dialogues, you name it, that some of them that are conducted in English, and even those, the speakers, the politicians, those people, absolutely, I'm coming from the rural areas.
Yeah.
You know, it's difficult for those people. They don't understand the terms and everything, and even the processes. I think they are living in fear. I think it's high time that people, their eyes are being opened and educated in their own languages and understand what is happening about the governance of the country.
Thanks, Nicholas. Thanks for your call. We'll wrap it there. We'll do that in a moment.
Morning Talk with Siki Mgabadeli.
We're wrapping up our conversation with Dr. Fani du Toit, who is Executive Director at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. So, again, Motala making a very important point about language.
Yes, I think that is one of the points that came clearly out of our sessions as well. People want to talk in their own language. They want to be able to express the full dimensions of what they want to say, and they need to do that in their own language. And so we've throughout provided translation, or at least informal translation services, and I think it's important that we do that. We have English as the de facto lingua franca of this country, but that's merely a pragmatic thing. We really need to learn to speak to each other in our own languages. Just one further point, I think education, and the need to involve young people in this conversation has come out clearly. We've had some learners with us, students as well, who made immensely creative suggestions and contributions, and and often I think they're the people to lead us out of this. So we need to do that, not to give them chance to make good sound bites and things like that, but to honestly think with us on this way forward.
And sometimes they don't have the same entrenched positions we adults have.
They have seen less trouble than we have. But the abiding memory for me of this time that the Archbishop Makgoba hosted for us in Johannesburg was really a plea, an impassionate plea by President Masiri from Botswana, saying, South Africa, those of us looking from the outside in, please don't let this slip. Don't take your stability for granted. If you go down, the rest of us are going with you. And we have a vested interest. We see some signs that this is time to act. And it was an incredibly impressive speech. He's part of a Club de Madrid, which is a club of ex-presidents and prime ministers. President Chizano was also involved, and funded by the European Union. That sent these observers to this meeting, and their contribution from outside our borders, looking into South Africa, was so valuable. So it just reminds us South Africans that there's a lot riding on our reconciliation process.
Yeah, it's nice to have an outsider looking in, because we get so caught up in our own conversations and in our own problems.
And
we don't know
Africans,
what outsiders are seeing.
Yeah.
Dr. Fani du Toit, always a pleasure to talk to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. 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 Wonderful. Thank you so much.